Hello and welcome to the Coronavirus Lockdown Livestream, the show that brings welcome levity to the end of the world, lifting the spirits of many of you currently in self-isolation by infecting as many as possible with comfort and distraction as the apocalypse unfolds. How the heck are you all doing? I notice that there are currently, 38 watching on the live stream. I don't have anyone in the green room at the moment, although I did send out, hang on, just correct my camera. I did send out a link, so hopefully that will change at some point. So Nilda Gomez asks, I wanted to leave a recorded message, but I can't find the link. Let me resolve that issue for you right now. So to leave a voicemail, here's the address that you need, speakpipe.com/Cedars. Alternatively, if you're in the mood for sending in a video message as an unlisted YouTube video, here is the address to send it to, and we will include it on the show. Just see what other comments. Good morning, all you apostates, says Doda Gaia. It's not morning here, Doda. It's very much early evening. Morning also for Eric Larsen. Mark Wetherill says, Geiger counter off the scale. I think Mark is referring to my radioactivity as an apostate. Denise is tuning in from Florida. As is Nicole. Gabrielle says, wow, it's working well today. Oh, that's nice to know. I have had problems, as you know. I went through a glitchy spell with this StreamYard program. But as long as that's in the past, I'm happy, to be honest. Simon says, afternoon, peeps. Book Grader also wishes to convey... Sorry, Puck Grader also wishes to convey a good afternoon. Monica is watching on Twitch from Boston. Gosh. Eric says he got rid of as much radiation as possible. Jenny Barrett says, good evening from Western Australia. Good evening indeed, Jenny. Speaking of Western Australia, it might be that we don't have the Australian contingent in today's show, because I noticed none of them are in the green room. It is, in fairness, very late, like the middle of the night where they are. So it might be, we'll see where we get on with reading comments. And I still have to do my book reading, but it might just end up being a shorter show today, but we'll see how we get on. Janet James is watching from Columbia. Is that Maryland, USA? Tabitha Wasbauer says, hello. Today is the first day that we're allowed to go for a walk within a range of 1 kilometer from home for a max of 1 hour. But hey, that's 1 hour a day of freedom regained. Yeah, well, actually, I should probably regale you with my own experience of freedom from today. Deanna and I decided to get our shopping done. What we've been doing is doing our shopping in bulk for like 2 or 3 weeks worth, so we don't have to keep driving to and fro from the shops. And so far, that's worked pretty well. And today, it was time to venture into town again. And wow, things were noticeably different. It should be said that the number of infections and deaths in Croatia was comparatively low to begin with, but it's really decreasing now. We do seem to be on the other side of the curve, so to speak. And so a number of restrictions have been lifted. A few days ago, we went for a drive 40 minutes south to the border with Bosnia and had a nice family day doing that. Today, when we went into town, there were lots of shops open that had nothing to do with basic provisions. There was even a sports shop open, and various, we call them ironically Chinese shops, or Croatians call them Chinese shops, because they sell goods that have more than likely been produced in Chinese sweatshops. And there were those sorts of shops open, and I ventured into one of them to buy some presents for Jessica's birthday, and it was heaving inside, really busy. There were like little signs saying keep 2 meters apart or whatever, but for the most part people were sort of observing it, but for the most part people were just, you know, helping themselves. And it was really interesting because I went into like how can I put it, how would you describe it in America? What do they call the like a CVS style shop, where traditionally there have been massive shortages of sanitizer and disinfectant. And rather than there being a shortage, this time they had the stuff on display right as you walked in. So they had bottles of hand sanitizer, wipes, all sorts of stuff. They were like, right, it was almost as though they were saying, right, we've gone from having none of it to having too much of it, so please take it. So yeah, we're very, very well equipped now here in my part of the world, it must be said, and starting to experience an easing of restrictions. Jan Burnett says, finally managed to tune in live again tonight, this morning. Sound like you're confused there, Jan. 1 a.m. 1 a.m. is certainly late, it must be said. Nilda, related to her earlier request about leaving a voicemail, says, thanks, Lloyd. We'll see if I can manage it. Not great with technology. Nilda, don't talk yourself down. You've made it this far. You've made it onto the coronavirus lockdown live stream. You can't be that bad with technology, surely. Lots of comments coming through. I'm just going to quickly check to see whether... Yeah, I believe that the rest of the team have had the links, but yeah, 1 or 2 will be joining a bit later. So there's no one in the green room yet, but I'm led to believe that that will change. Gabrielle Spedding's question didn't anticipate, or did anticipate, sorry, what I've just said. So I'm not going to repeat myself, but yes, things are easing somewhat in my part of the world. Zoran Jasic is one border along from me in Serbia. Hello, Zoran. Sid Whittle says hi from California. Johanna is watching from New Jersey. All over the shop you're tuning in from, 60 of you at this present time. Ellie is watching from California. Billy Jet Richuletta says, hello from Pikes Peak. Goodness knows where that is, but I am very much impressed by your avatar, which seems to show a dog wearing some Ray-Bans. So top marks for that avatar. We've got Jeff from Kansas. We've got Martin from the UK. Anna on Twitch watching from California, which I'm given to understand means Southern California. Yeah, you see, I know my stuff. I know my geography. Charles is watching from the Netherlands, but every time I try to comment, your live stream is on hold. Damn you, Facebook. Damn you. Okay, calm down, Charles. Everything seems to be under control. Your comment has been intercepted and integrated into the show, it must be said. Eric Larsen says, Sasha might sit up in bed with a eureka moment, thinking of a poem. I'm sure that happens, if anything, too much, based on sort of reading between the lines with what Sherry's been saying. Gabrielle wants to know where Arthur is. He's not living that near to me, Gabrielle. Good grief, he's in Romania. It takes hours to drive. If I were to drive to Arthur, it would be a Lord of the Rings style quest to get there. But he is, I know what you mean. He's in Eastern Europe, and I understand he'll be joining us in the near future. Nilda Gomez says, in Miami, they are trying to open up everything, even though the cases over here are still increasing. Yeah, I don't advocate for that at all. It sort of made sense when we went out today and saw a degree of normality, given the fact that there are so few cases, fortunately, in my part of Europe, which is, I think, very fortunate considering there's literally just the Adriatic Sea separating us from Italy and a sliver of Slovenia between us and the Italian border. And yet we've managed in Croatia to, escape the worst of it, at least for this wave, because there's supposed to be multiple waves, aren't there, of this awful thing. Eric Larsen says there's a protest going on right now at Louisiana's state capital so they can regain their right to spread a deadly virus. It is insanity. I do try not to be too political on the coronavirus lockdown live stream because I know how polarizing politics can be, but good grief. I don't think you have a right to spread a deadly disease. One-eyed Jack 1234 says, a bit chilling to think that people have to be allowed to do something. Is that referring to right? Well, it's not that chilling, One-eyed Jack, if again it's saving lives. I mean, if you have, and I suppose to a degree this is taking everyone off guard because it's so unprecedented. I mean, no one, there were probably a few people alive in 1918, but they would have been babies, wouldn't they? Or very, very young children. They wouldn't have remembered what we're experiencing now. And the world was a very different place in 1918 and not as densely populated. So what we're going through is unprecedented, and we're having to adapt with our civilization and our way of life. And, you know, if the question is, do we have a right to spread a deadly pathogen that turns people's lungs to soup? My answer would be no. The government gets to intervene there and make sure that, to the degree possible, people are taking sensible precautions. And so far, all of the lockdown restrictions I've seen have at least allowed people to, for example, go to the shops and have the essentials. You know, it's not like people are being deprived food or anything like that. Jan Burnett says, the other day, my name finally came up on a waiting list for who gives a crap toilet paper. I don't even know what that means, Jan. I'm all confused at this point. And I was finally allowed to place an order for a carton of 24 rolls of toilet paper. My question would be, Jan, what ply is it? That's always the question that we ask on the coronavirus lockdown live stream. Are we talking 1 ply? Are we talking 2 ply? Or are we talking 3 ply? The ply is essential in determining how long this stuff's going to last, and to a degree, your comfort in using it. And the other day, it was delivered to my home. Woohoo, says Jan. Well, whatever ply it is, Jan, I'm delighted for you that relief has been brought and you no longer need to use whatever it was you were using before. Good grief. Mental images abound at this point, viewers. Shona McKellar says, just stumbled on this. Hooray! 1 a.m. in Oz, which I'm given to believe means Australia. So welcome, Shona. Azad Richards says, hi from England. Good old Blighty, represented here on the lockdown live stream. Ruben Takes Off is watching from Connecticut. There's also Virginia in the house. Thell's Experience 71. They're on Twitch. Bunny Phillips, I think, is just making up names at this point. Shreveport, never heard of that. But nonetheless, I take your word for it, and I hope that Shreveport is in fine form today. LaTasha Brown says, there's no hand sanitizer anywhere in Cleveland, Ohio. LaTasha, if I could beam you some, I would do. We now are overrun almost in my part of the world. They were even selling like industrial bottles, black industrial bottles. I've never seen black, like any kind of form of hand wash in a black bottle before. It was very confusing, but it was like that big. And it looked like it was like medical grade or something like that. So they were almost, yeah, I think they'd almost overbooked their stocks of sanitizer. Tylene Latarski Lalonde says, I'm listening to you and husband is downstairs on Zoom for his meeting. Gosh. Well, there's a tale of two parts of the house, isn't it? Wow. So there is a spiritually divided family, I think is what you would call that in Jehovah's Witness parlance. But I hope that today's lockdown live stream provides you some welcome relief from what sounds like a very stressful situation that you're in. Elsie, I'm just going to read comments at this point. I will get to my book, but there's no one in the green room. And, you know, quite frankly, as much as I enjoy reading this, and I will read from it, I just think if there's this many comments, I'm damn well going to read them. Hell, it's my show. I get to decide the format. And today I'm changing the format and I'm going to read comments. Quite enjoy it. Hello, Elsie from Leeds. That looks like a glass of something. I'm going to say water, but I'm pretty sure it's white wine. Eric Larsen says, my wife is outside for her Zoom service. Outside? Is she like in the garden? That actually sounds like if you're going to attend a meeting, you know, for goodness sake, do it somewhere scenic. You know, it certainly beats sitting in a windowless building listening to this stuff. At least be outside. You can maybe be entertained by the wildlife. If it was my part of the world, I am being entertained every night by the wildlife here in Croatia. I now have a new ritual. It used to be that whenever I go on holiday to the coast here in Croatia, before going to bed, I'd spend a while. We always book somewhere with a balcony on Airbnb overlooking the sea. That's kind of my number one requirement for booking an Airbnb in Croatia. You have to have a balcony, preferably overlooking the sea, but at least overlooking somewhere scenic. And I just spend a while sitting outside, enjoying the scenery, maybe with a glass of whiskey, maybe not. Usually with a glass of whiskey, if I'm honest, on holiday. And it occurred to me recently, why don't you do that at home? Because you have a balcony at home that you could sit on. It may not be as scenic. There isn't the sea, but you still live in the countryside. So maybe there's going to be some ambience. And I found that indeed there is ambience. There's a lot of things happening, it turns out. When you sit on a balcony in my part of Croatia at midnight, which is usually when I sit on my balcony before bedtime, there's all sorts going on. There's bats, there's owls, there were some hedgehogs mating the other day. There's red squirrels, which we don't have anymore, or they're very rare in the UK. All sorts of wildlife. Oh, and wolves howling in the background. So it's all happening, it turns out. So I do recommend being outside if at all possible. So Tim Friley is saying hello from sunny Fargo, North Dakota. Hope everyone is staying safe. Thank you so much, Tim. Angela Elliott says, hello, Lloyd. Thank you for your great reports. Big love to you and your beautiful family from Angela, down under in Australia. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you so much, Angela. Nash is watching from Canada. Jesse is coming at us from San Francisco. Barnabas Collins appears to be in a dancing frenzy, not just of the bear kind, but if emojis are to be believed, There's some crazy stuff going on where Barnabas is at the moment. But anyway, let me read a bit of, because I can see someone in the green room. I can see two people in the green room, which means I have some guests for today's show. Oh, good grief, what's Arthur doing? Look at him, bless him. He looks like he's wandering around aimlessly, maybe on the run from the police. We had this problem with Kim Sylvia. He's saying something. I can't hear you, mate. I have to add you to the show, and I'm not doing it. I need to read from this book, Take Back Your Life, and then I will add both you and Kimmy. I've been reading from Take Back Your Life, Recovering from Cults and Abusive Relationships by Janja Lalich and Madeline Tobias, and I'm currently in Chapter 7, Taking Back Your Mind. Let me read a few paragraphs under the heading, The Cloud of Indecisiveness. Some former members have problems making decisions. Deciding something as significant as what to do with the rest of your life may seem impossible. Yet even smaller choices may feel overwhelming or paralyzing to ex-members. By dictating all rules and norms and eliminating choice, cults create childlike dependency in their members. Often that degree of control is even higher in abusive cultic relationships and families. In some groups, dependence is increased through a system of disciplers, one helps, control officers, or overseers who approve or disapprove of all aspects of daily life and report members' so-called progress to their leadership. Other groups use self-monitoring techniques that require members to keep diaries or reports or self-criticisms of all negative thoughts, behaviors, or actions that lead to doubt or rule breaking. Typically, such diaries and reports are turned over to the group. Most cults punish small mistakes or any attempts at autonomy. This may result in reprimand or rebuking, as some call it, sleep or food deprivation, physical punishment or hard labor, group denunciation and humiliation, threats of expulsion, damnation, or possession by demons, death threats, and in some instances, actual death. Whether overt or covert, these control mechanisms promote dependence on the group and prevent personal decision-making and autonomy. Even after people leave their cults, this ingrained behavior may linger. One former member coped with her inability to make decisions in the following way. Sharon Y. left a Bible-based group after 4 years of intense speaking in tongues and devotion to her pastor, who guided her in all facets of her life. She described herself as a fish out of water, flip-flopping on dry land, unable to make a decision and stick to it. Thoughts felt slippery. As soon as she decided on a course of action, she either forgot why she chose it or proceeded to talk herself out of it. This was exasperating for her and for her family and friends. Sharon had difficulty with major decisions, whether to move out of her parents' house, change her employment, or go back to school. Almost as difficult were minor choices, like what to wear, eat, or do at any given time. Sharon found list-making an important first step. When confronted with a choice or decision, small or large, she would reduce it to its smallest pieces. For example, she made a list of the pros and cons of moving. After deciding that moving out was important, she made another list of what she would need to move out successfully. Sharon had been taught that her mind was the enemy, so thinking was a habit she had to relearn. She had to learn to be patient with herself, allow herself to make mistakes, forgive herself, learn from her mistakes, and take credit for her successes. By first making small decisions and then enjoying the feelings of confidence and self-esteem that success brought, Sharon began to trust herself again. The act of decision-making becomes less daunting with practice and experience. It is one of the cherished rights and privileges of freedom. I have been reading from Chapter 7 of Take Back Your Life, Recovering from Cults and Abusive Relationships by Janja Lalich and Madeline Tobias. The chapter in question is Taking Back Your Mind, and I will be reading from the next heading in our next show, and the heading will be The Barrier of Loaded Language. So look out for that. That was interesting, wasn't it? And it's time for me to be joined by my guests. Hello, Kimmy and Arthur.
Hi.
Hello, Lloyd. Hello, Kimmy.
Hi, Arthur. Hi, Lloyd.
Arthur, are you on the run from the police?
No, I'm not on the run from the police. I'm on my way home. On my bike.
On your bike?
Yep.
You are live streaming from a bike in Romania?
Yes.
Good.
Which is obviously on the border.
The quality is great, Arthur.
I mean, has this even been done before? We seem to be breaking the rules, all rules of the internet.
Should I get on my bicycle with Mark and we could ride around our neighborhood?
What we could do is we could pretend that this is a fitness video and therefore worthy of monetization.
More monetization, yes.
Do you want me to get on my treadmill with my cat?
If you could at least dangle a cat at some point.
Yeah, I will. He's sitting on the treadmill right now.
Arthur,
yes.
so that we can pass this off as a consumer advice review, what bicycle are you using and how do you rate its performance?
Well, it's a mountain bike, 18 gears, yellow color. It's very comfortable.
So it's not chafing?
We have a lovely weather here in Romania.
Okay.
Sun is shining. Over 20 degrees Celsius. Yes. The Kaufland is not here. The Kaufland is on the other side of the.
Yeah.
So this here is a strip mall called Prima Shops.
Yeah.
There's another strip mall called Lotus Retail Park, and the Kaufland is on the other side.
We have Kaufland in Croatia as well, so that's why I asked.
Yeah.
So, at this point, the coronavirus lockdown live stream could be considered as like a travel vlog.
Yes, because, a couple of episodes ago, you took us to Lidl and, which was the other store? I don't remember. And now I'm taking you to...
Shona wants to know, is it the case that helmets are not mandatory in Romania?
They are recommended, but not mandatory, yeah.
Okay. Arthur, I'm sure you're very
competent. He is breaking the rules.
He's a bit of a rule breaker, yeah.
Yeah, that's why the elders didn't want to grant me any special privileges.
Yeah, quite a few people are concerned about the potential for an accident, but I'm sure you've got things in hand.
Yes, in both hands. See, now you can see the.
Have you dismounted?
To Kaufland.
Have you dismounted?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm on my feet.
So we can all breathe a sigh of relief at this point.
As a pedestrian, yes.
Okay.
And here's a brand new residential project, okay. And some more apartment buildings are being constructed.
Well, I take it, Arthur, that we're not going to be able to do sing along with Arthur while you are literally in the street, unless you plan to go busking.
Of course not, but I'm very, very close to my home, so we will do sing along with Arthur in this episode.
Okay.
I've prepared a well-known song.
Right.
Of course, with themed lyrics, and the original was performed by a certain Jason. I don't think it's Jason Wynn, but it's a Jason.
Well, just to add a bit of variety to the show, what can you tell us about this cat, Kimmy?
This is Charlie. He is, I guess he's getting to be about 13 or 14 now.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty big cat.
Star of a number of Watchtower in Focus episodes,
He
if
is.
I'm not mistaken.
He wandered into our yard one day chasing butterflies. He was about 6 months old. I think an older lady may have passed away, and they just let him and his sister out. So he ended up, choosing us.
Well done. Good choice, Charlie. Good choice.
He's also featured in the On My Shoulders in the Atlantic article that we were in last year. There's a picture of me and Charlie on my front porch. He just loves sitting on my shoulders.
Who wouldn't, Kimmy? Who wouldn't? Fantastic.
There.
Fantastic. So, dare I ask whether it's possible to have a limerick from you today, Kimmy?
I'm sure.
How much prep time do you need?
1 second.
1 second. Gosh, that is good. All right, hang on. Let me run the music for Sasha's Poetry Corner, and then we can keep some continuity with that segment.
There once was a redwood named Mark who woke up out of the dark. He helped me to see that I could be free. The difference in living is stark.
Oh, very nice indeed. Tells a real story there. Thank you so much, Kimmy.
So, put on the fly.
No, it's considering you were under pressure. I think that was very impressive. And we're keeping the segment going, which is not inconsiderable.
Yeah, I think Mark may be joining us at some point. So,
well, that would be nice. I was going to actually recommend that because obviously there have been developments, haven't there?
Yeah, I expect him to join shortly. He didn't see your link earlier, so he didn't realize, that when you say you're doing this on Saturday at 11, you mean you're doing this.
Speak of the devil.
Oh, there he is. We were just talking about you, Mark.
Yeah, here he is.
You have to watch the replay for my limerick.
Sans
welcome, Mark.
By the looks of things. Yeah. How are you? How are you, Mark? Oh, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Are you muted in the show, Mark?
I'm not muting him.
No, because he's not getting us triggering remarks. Of course, you're not muting him.
You're the one who usually gives triggering remarks, Arthur. It must be said. No, he's. I wonder whether his mute button is pressed on it because his microphone, if it's the same as mine. Hang on. Has a mute button. Hang on. Yeah. Let's see if that makes a difference.
Here's something.
He's left us, and then there were 3.
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
Well, we have Charlie, so it's still 4.
And Charlie is a huge source of revenue.
Yeah, $0. He cost us a lot of money in cat treats.
Gabrielle says, Arthur, it's fun to see Romania live.
Yes, it is. I'm sure of it.
It's nice to see outside for those that aren't going outside yet riding their bikes.
Yeah.
Eric Larsen appreciated the limerick.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Debbie appreciates the cat scarf. Eric Larsen says, now that's a fashion statement.
He is pretty warm. I think he's a Norwegian forest cat, and he loves the snow. I'll have to post a picture later. I have a picture. We had a big 5-foot blizzard one year, and I was outside. Anytime it snows, I have to take him for a walk outside in the snow. So he just loves the cold.
Denise Bartlett thinks Charlie is beautiful.
I think so too.
As does Elsie. Shona thinks that Charlie is a cute kitty. Jessica is addressing Charlie by saying, "Hi, kitty, kitty." Bev loves the cat. Gabrielle thinks it's beautiful, as does Azadi.
All right, it's easier.
Yeah. So Gabrielle says, Lloyd, you could do the same, a live stream from your garden. Not really. It's a nice idea. Maybe from my balcony. I could do one from my balcony because that's technically my part of the house. But we have a bit of a rule that we don't do anything from the garden because the garden belongs to Deanna's parents and they are JWs. So we have strict rules regarding what part of the house I am allowed to do activism from. But I guess I could shake things up for one show and do it from the balcony. But it's just that, how can I put it? We live on a main road, and so it would just be every now and then you just have a car or a tractor going past, and it would be deafening. But yeah, let me think about that. I'll give that some thought. Nilda Gomez says, Kim, I love your cat. He looks like he's got a little of ragdoll in him. I have 3 cats, 1 ragdoll, 1 tuxedo, and 1 Maine Coon mix.
Yeah, he does act like a ragdoll, but they're very similar to the Norwegian forest cat. You can hold him upside down, he doesn't care. You can hold him by his tail, he doesn't care. But he also, like, well, if you were to let him outside, he'd just wander in the street like, hey, is that a car? You know, that's kind of how ragdolls are too. They're just so easygoing and just don't care about anything.
I'm interested in getting a cat, but the problem that we have is that we live again on a very fast main road. The road that we live on is basically the road that leads to Bosnia. So you get massive kind of articulated lumber trucks just hurtling past, and any animals that are in the way are just going to get squashed. So you're always seeing roadkill, not necessarily immediately outside our house, but certainly on our street. So
because you wouldn't have the cat inside, the cat would be out.
That's the problem. It's not a very big place to have an indoor cat. Our apartment.
It's different in Croatia. The people have their cats outside.
They do mostly just wander the neighborhood. Yeah, but I guess I'm worried about Jessica getting attached to it and then, it dying, which has happened to previous cats that we've had. But we'll see. Tabitha says, Lloyd, could you tell how you get those comments on the screen and what you use to add other people to your live stream? I'm doing live streams, but would love to add others to it, but have no idea of how. Tabitha, I'm currently using StreamYard on a paid service. There is a free service, which is pretty much identical. It's just that you have, where you currently see the coronavirus lockdown live stream logo, you would see the StreamYard logo instead. But apart from that, it's a terrific piece of, I don't know, I guess you would call it software. Although I do eventually hope to progress to using OBS Studio. I'm not great at multitasking, to be honest. I'm okay at presenting, but when it comes to flicking switches and shifting between screens and that kind of thing, it's a little bit more problematic. And we are joined by Brandon.
Folks.
How are you, Brandon?
Hi, Brandon.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Brandon, what have you done with Mark? He's not with us, and he was with us briefly.
I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Well, you say that.
I had powers such that, but no.
Do I need to check on Mark?
If you could, Kimmy, that'd be lovely, because there are a couple of things I want to ask him about. Yeah. Now, the question is, however, where are you up to, Arthur, with your segment? You look at the moment like you're mildly stunned. Is it frozen? I think his screen's frozen. It looks like he's made a very disturbing discovery. Just on the frame. Oh, there we are. It's the spinning circle of doom. So how are you? How are things in your neck of the woods, Brandon?
Things are doing all right. Still working. We heard yesterday that the governor of Washington is planning on starting a process to roll some things back, although the stay-at-home has been extended through the 31st of May, I believe.
Okay.
Sounds like most of the western states are kind of in agreement on board there. So some light at the end of the tunnel potentially, but other than that, we have a new addition to the family. Yesterday, one of our friends had a litter of puppies, so we picked her up yesterday. This is Miss Addie.
Excellent! Wow,
Addie Astra.
This will hang on. Let me just go full screen. So this will surely make my video monetizable because we've had not just a cat but also a cute puppy.
Yeah, we got puppies too. She's a Shorkie.
A Shorkie. So that's a cross between a Yorkie and
Shih Tzu.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, it looks very cute. Congratulations.
In the meantime, I got home.
She's sweet.
Arthur, are you ready to do your segment?
1 second, I have to share my screen in the meantime and get the backing track. But yeah,
I will take that as a yes. Oh, Mark's just joined, so let's just welcome Mark and see if his audio is working. Are you with us there, Mark?
Testing.
Can you hear us?
Are we not back? No,
I can. We can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you.
Good, excellent. So you join Mark just in time for the most anticipated part of the show, which is Sing Along with Arthur.
All right.
I think Mark's having an audio problem again. He has to step away.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, thank you, Lloyd, for giving me this opportunity to bring you another original cover by...
Don't disappoint me, Arthur. A lot of trust has been put in you. Don't let me down.
Actually, this song was suggested by one of our viewers. Her name is Annalise Wilson. I say hi to her if she's watching. And she suggested doing a cover of another famous cartoon show.
Oh, good grief.
Where the theme song is sung by a certain Jason, as I previously mentioned.
Sounds ominous.
Just want to say, I'm glad you were able to make it to your office chair without any incident, Arthur.
Yeah, it was touch and go for a moment there, Brandon.
Yeah.
I think from the moment he dismounted, a massive sigh of relief was breathed around the world.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm trying to do a screen share here.
Trying and failing, it seems, Arthur. Trying and failing.
I just like how he's done this so many times, but
Yeah. He never learns.
Of course not.
He just never learns.
Especially when I have to tick that checkbox.
Here we are. We can hear audio.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. Converting them is my real test. Their salvation is my cause. I will travel across the branch as long as the slave sees fit. Make all sheep like once understand. To Christ they must submit. Preach the word, gotta reach them all, it's you and me. I know it's my ministry. Preach the word, yo bro, you're my best friend, and the truth we must defend. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all. My faith is a shielding wall. We help them reach to baptism. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all, gotta reach 'em all. Yeah. Opposition along the way. With courage, I will face. Pray for spirit every day, not to lose my privileged place. Join the org, the end is near. There's no better team. The new world comes, so have no fear. It's more than just a dream. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all, it's you and me. I know it's my ministry. Bro, you're my best friend, and the truth we must defend. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all. My faith is a shielding wall. We help them reach to baptism. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all, gotta reach 'em all.
Oh, air drums.
Piano and air drums. Wow.
Piano and air drums. Another first for the coronavirus lockdown live stream.
I think he's ruined Pokemon for me, though.
He's giving it some. And air guitar as well. There's lots of gyration going on. I'm not sure that YouTube will allow this. This is borderline provocative.
Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all, it's you and me. I know it's my ministry. Oh, you're my best friend, and the truth you must defend.
It's quite a long
Reach 'em all,
song, isn't it?
gotta reach 'em all. My faith is a shielding wall. We help them reach to baptism. Preach the word, gotta reach 'em all, gotta reach 'em all. Preach the word.
Well,
Is there no time limit on these?
that was an experience. I feel as though I've been through something, and it's something very, very profoundly affecting me. So thank you for that. Thoughts, Mark?
I think Arthur has gone back to the dark side, and I think if a witness actually stuck that on social media, that you'd probably have 1,000 or more people that are that would love that. JWs would love that.
Arthur, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not very good and 10 being perfect, how would you rate your performance?
I don't rate my own performances, I let others rate them.
Okay, well, Gabrielle Spedding is giving you 10.
Wow. Thank you, Gabrielle.
So, yeah. And Crumbs, best song performance so far. That's who knew it was that easy? And Exec Sesh says, yes, a profound experience. That's a new Kingdom melody. So thank you so much, Arthur, for really giving it some in that performance. You certainly threw yourself into that. And it's added value, I feel, or at least entertainment to the coronavirus lockdown live stream.
Yeah, I wrote the lyrics this morning.
Barnabas is actually giving you 11.7. I'm not sure that's actually mathematically possible.
It is because it's a irrational number. It's
John Lambert says it's a solid 7.3. So I'm just giving,
Yes.
Angela's giving you 9. So yeah, we're
of course, in a studio environment, it would have sounded better.
Obviously, yeah. We need to cut you some slack.
Or the shower. Although I think I've just given Arthur his next idea.
Yeah,
you thought seeing him on a bicycle was bad.
Sing along with Arthur in the shower. Yeah, but
For
that,
mature
Yeah,
audiences only.
there was an
if
episode
nothing
of
else gets my channel removed, I'm sure that segment would. Yeah.
there was an episode on the Flintstones when Fred, Barney, and some other character took a bathtub to a TV show, and they performed some music there.
Love the Flintstones.
So, I'm actually really pleased that you've been able to join us, Mark, because although this isn't Watchtower in Focus, this is the coronavirus lockdown live stream, of course, there have nevertheless been a lot of developments, and we've been debating how to cover them. I guess there's no harm in talking about them. Would you be willing to fill us in on what's happening?
Sure. Yeah, a little 5-minute Watchtower in Focus episode.
Yeah.
There's there's quite a bit going on, and I think we've talked about Montana for the past since 2018, when the trial occurred in Thompson Falls, Montana. Watchtower was found guilty, and there was a $35 million verdict against them. And then, of course, a year later, we had the Supreme Court appeal by Watchtower, and then several months later, I think January of this year, the announcement was the decision was reversed, and so then we had the announcement that the case was refiled again on the basis of negligence, going back to an earlier point. So this is all talking about Montana and the Nunez case, and it's really made quite a stir. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's a brand new Montana case that's even. And I don't really know if I should use the word worse, because all survivors of abuse really are, equally important. So I don't really like saying, well, this case is much worse than the other one, although you could make that argument. But there's a Montana case that involves an elder and multiple ministerial servants and multiple survivors of abuse that has just been filed in Montana District Court. This has nothing to do with the Nunez versus Montana case. And the investigator that's involved in this case, I've known about it for quite some time, because they did contact me a while ago. And the investigator described this as a case of, let's see, how did he put it? To put it bluntly, it was a case of a multiple pedophilia and what he called a pedophile ring. Now, these are his words, not mine. And I understand why he's saying that, but without getting too much detail and too graphic, the fact is that a case has been filed in district court in Montana. And I might add that it's interesting that it was filed because the deadline to file was May 6th. And the reason they could file at all is because previously the statute of limitations had run out on these civil cases that were not within the current civil statute of limitations. But there was an extension or a statute of limitations had opened up for, I think, a period of 1 year. And that ends, let's see, what is today, May 2nd? So that ends May 6th. So they filed this just last Friday, just before the deadline. But the whole reason this came about was due to the Nunez case in Montana that we've just been talking about for the past couple of years. So even though that ended up getting reversed in the Supreme Court and has been refiled, that case ended up affecting Montana's legislature to the point where they opened up this window. And then these other cases started coming forward, including this really egregious Jehovah's Witness case.
It's not connected, but it has had a knock-on effect. Yeah.
It's had a knock-on effect. And so in the end, it allowed these, it's called Kakert versus Watchtower. And Kakert is one of the survivors. Actually, there's two sisters, and by the way, there's multiple victims, and some of them don't want to come forward, and some of them don't want to join the case. And you can imagine some of the reasons why. And some of these people are still involved with the church. In fact, the mother of two of these victims, including Kakert, signed an affidavit and claims to be an active witness who still goes in volunteer work. So we have someone who has signed an affidavit that says, I am an active Jehovah's Witness, and I am saying what my husband did. So the perpetrator is, I think it's Bruce Mapley Sr., and I want to get that correct because his son, Junior, obviously is not the perpetrator in this, but it's Bruce Mapley Sr., who is, by the way, an active witness in the southern United States. He's moved from Montana to the southern U.S., and I want to make sure I use the word alleged in here because all of this is alleged. He's not been arrested, so we should not, go and, seek out and verbally or otherwise attack this man in any way. But he is an alleged pedophile that allegedly abused his own daughters and others in what the investigators and the attorneys are calling a pedophile ring that involved a cover-up. And when these cases started to come to the attention of the elders in the, I think it's Hardin, Montana, Hardin, and I don't mind talking about this because I think people will begin to come forward with additional stories about these people who were allegedly involved in this. There was a man by the name of Gunnar Haynes, who was a ministerial servant who was abusing some of these girls when they were underage. So there was a second ministerial servant. There was Bruce Mapley Sr. There were at least 3 people named in this court case. And again, Bruce, I think he was an elder and the other 2 were ministerial servants. So they were all appointed representatives. This all happened in the late 1970s. And one of the exhibits in this case is Montana's law. And what I find interesting about the fact that they've posted as an exhibit Montana's legislative direction regarding reporting child abuse back in the 70s is that they had no clergy reporting, but they also had no clergy exemption. So, and I could pull the document.
Did you just say that they've actually filed as an exhibit the law? You don't hear of that happening too much.
Absolutely did. Yeah, they filed. Let me see. I think there were maybe 4 or 5 exhibits to this case. One of them was actually my affidavit. One of them was the wife of Bruce Mapley Sr.
So your affidavit has been filed as part of this case as well.
It has. It's like a maybe 4 or 5 page affidavit, and they primarily, I had to get it notarized, and it had to be overnighted to the attorneys and their investigator in Montana. And
was this just to give like an overview of what the issues are, or?
Yeah, so it was really my information and knowledge with reference to the database of child abuse that we have become very aware of in our research, your research, Lloyd, mine, and working with multiple cases. So I don't know. I mean, I suspect maybe at some point, if this ever goes to trial or prior to the trial, they'll probably fly me out there for deposition. There's a number of things that can happen, but yeah, I did have to write and sign an affidavit with regards, and it's all public documents. I can send it to you guys.
It's rewarding to do it to do that though, isn't it? A bit, because obviously I'm limited in what I can talk about when it comes to ICSA, but it's very, very rewarding to be involved in that process where you're submitting evidence, and it takes a lot of effort. Like you're mentioning 4 or 5 pages for yours.
Right.
This stuff takes ages often to research. I mean, even though we know these issues inside out, forwards and backwards, you're still having to put things in words that total outsiders will understand, and make sure that everything is backed up to the hilt with references. So, and using their formatting and all that sort of thing. So it's a complicated process, and I'm sure you found it very cathartic to be involved in it.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was just thinking. It was very cathartic to be able to go through line by line and make sure that I was accurately portraying what the policy was, because even the attorneys involved and the investigator, they're all, they haven't filed a JW case in the past. So they're all new to this. And I've had to correct them on things that, we don't want to misrepresent the case. Right. So we don't want to misrepresent even Watchtower's position, because that only makes it look like, well, look, they've got this guy who signed an affidavit who's just an angry apostate and he's full of lies. And, I don't want any parts of that. I want the cold hard facts to be before the court, because the facts of child abuse are just awful enough to begin with. And we've got to get these facts regarding the cover up of child abuse or the policies of Watchtower. I mean, cover up is sort of a pejorative word. So if take that word out of the equation and just throw the facts out there and say what Watchtower's policies are. But yes, there were maybe, I think there may have been 4 exhibits. There was Bruce Mapley, his wife, and now his ex-wife, who's an active witness, who testified exactly what her husband did. Then comes an elder, a former elder. So this is really interesting, is that they've actually gotten hold of an elder who's gone before the congregation elders, and he named all the elders. He named 2 circuit overseers and said that I went to these people and told them about the abuse that some of these men actually admitted to. And they shut me down, and the 2 circuit overseers shut me down. And then after the second time, they removed me as an elder. So, everyone can read these documents. We'll probably have an article on JW Survey up pretty soon on that, and they can read this document. But I'm being very careful about this because I want to protect the survivors, because even though these are public documents, it doesn't mean we should just slap the names of survivors all over the place unless they come forward and say that they, don't mind their case being discussed. Otherwise, we'll do what we did, in the Watkins case, which is, we'll heavily redact the names of the survivors. I can't get around the name of the case. The name of the case is Kakert versus Watchtower, and she's one of the victims of her own father. And these elders all covered it up. In fact, the presiding elder of this hardened congregation, turns out when he found out about this abuse, he was himself one of the abusers of these girls and other girls. So it is really, really screwed up what's going on. So it was filed in district court. We don't know what's going to happen just yet. Other cases such as in New York can't be filed right now because New York has a moratorium. So just to give you an example, there's an Oklahoma case that's waiting to be filed, and there's many other cases waiting to be filed in the Southern District of New York. But because of how severe the coronavirus situation is with that particular court that handles these cases, those cases, the state has put a moratorium on filing them. So we believe there's going to be an extension. We also believe there's going to be an extension of the Child Victims Act. So we've talked about this on Watchtower in Focus, and I think with Erwin Zalkin. Child Victims Act allows victims to come forward and file civil suits against either their abusers or the organization that covered up their abuse in the state of New York, and Watchtower is located in New York. So we have a number of cases that are going to be filed in New York, even though the abuse happened elsewhere. So anyway, that's there's a brand new Montana case, Kakert versus Watchtower, and lots going on with that. So
and there's also, my understanding is that you're going to work on a JW Survey article. Right. And once we've had time as a team to kind of digest what's happening and, maybe flesh out the details, we'll maybe do a Watchtower in Focus on that. But it's been a very busy week because obviously Watchtower has also gone after the Truth and Transparency Foundation?
Yes,
which is actually responsible for Faith Leaks, which hosts the material on avoidjw.org. So that's a pretty big deal.
So, yeah, just to clarify, and I want to make sure, because, the folks that run Avoid JW, I know they want to be, they're completely anonymous outside of the United States and somewhere. And they've just provided links to the Faith Leaks documents.
Yeah,
correct. So there's no documents that are hosted, at least no Watchtower documents, I believe, that are hosted on Avoid JW. It's just the links. They're connecting to Faith Leaks, and then Faith Leaks has those hosted outside of the U.S. themselves. So what has happened is that, let's see, since 2017, Watchtower has been issuing DMCA subpoenas to identify the personal information of anyone that they believe is a copyright infringer. So it could be somebody who posted a video on YouTube that contains some Watchtower content, such as videos, or it could be someone on Instagram posted a Watchtower letter. It could be some pictures from the My Book of Bible Stories. It could be anything. And so what they've done is over the past 3 years, Watchtower has systematically issued 60 different DMCA subpoenas. And the very last one was against an individual who is not in the U.S., who calls himself JW Apostate. And that individual is fighting back and claims to be a writer and some other things. And now that individual is fighting back. And the court is actually partly paying attention because the individual JW Apostate is making the argument that why is Watchtower going after 60 different individuals when they've never actually filed a connected lawsuit? And that's why all these cases are called MC cases, miscellaneous cases. It's very unusual to have DMCA subpoenas or subpoenas in general without an attached case. So that's why they get routed to the MC or miscellaneous department, miscellaneous case department in the federal court, in this case, Southern District of New York, in most cases. So you've got all these miscellaneous subpoenas where Watchtower has gone out and gotten the personally identifying information, IP address, email address, possibly their phone number, especially if it's connected to YouTube. They've gotten all this information to find out who these apostates are.
Dox them, yeah.
But so it's basically legally sanctioned doxing. So they, although Watchtower's not, I guess in the sense it's not doxing in the sense that they have.
Well, it's information that these individuals would not want. Well, the last
Correct.
people they would want to have this information is Watchtower, basically.
It gives Watchtower the upper hand, yeah.
Right. So they've taken all this information, and yet they've not filed a single lawsuit until this week when Watchtower finally said, oh, by the way, we're going to file a lawsuit against Truth and Transparency Foundation, which, by the way, they've known about for several years now.
And has nothing to do with all of the individuals they've been issuing subpoenas against.
Correct. Yeah. So they're trying to justify before the court. And Judge Seibel up in New York, who has issued multiple DMCA subpoenas on behalf of Paul Polidoro, Watchtower's lawyer, and Philip Brumley, Watchtower's chief counsel. This judge, she has issued multiple DMCA subpoenas, but now she's being questioned by JW Apostate to say, hey, why all the subpoenas and no case? And she basically is saying, you got a point there. So Watchtower, tell us. So Watchtower, in one of their replies, said, oh, yeah, by the way, our forensic team has been going after these copyright infringing individuals for several years now.
Did they actually use the word forensic?
Several times. Well, if we go back to the,
I'm imagining them in the like white radiation suits and like examining people's laptops and that kind of thing.
Yeah, if we have time, I'll pull up the document and read it. So back in Dark Spilver, which is the other anonymous infringer that won against Watchtower, Judge Donato in that California Reddit case where this guy named Dark Spilver had posted a couple of real innocuous documents on Reddit, and Watchtower went after him to get his identity. And he went to the Electronic Frontier Foundation and said, can you guys help me out? And they said, sure will, because you have a case for free speech. So they ended up winning that. They went before, I think, Judge Sally Kim, and then it ended up getting transferred over to Judge James Donato. And James Donato finally said, hey, this is free speech. You don't have the right to identify this Dark Spilver individual, and basically, Watchtower, you've lost this case. And so Watchtower doesn't get that person's identity. But during that case, Paul Polidoro, in fact, I have the audio file from the court. That is, not only do I have the written transcript, but I have the audio transcript, which we can share. And it's if you have a Pacer account, it's online. But you can hear Polidoro go before the judge and say, well, we've got our forensic team working on discovering who these individuals are. So he did admit this before the judge, and then he admitted it later again in the JW Apostate case.
So what we have really is Watchtower ramping up their efforts to stifle criticism, because what this is really about is limiting access to their materials and making sure that their materials are only ever considered in a context and with a spin that Watchtower decides. Ultimately, I mean, I don't know what you think, Brandon and Kimmy and Arthur, but for me, this is all about control.
Yep.
But we were talking earlier online as a group, and Brandon had a really good point about how that they're upset that this video is posted in its entirety, yet they make claims that apostates are always altering materials to change the meaning. But if you're posting it in its original form, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot, so to speak.
Indeed.
Yeah, my opinion is that that actually they care about their own products, which are their own. They own the copyright. They produced it, but they don't care about people who are actually members. They don't care about children. They don't care about abusers. They don't care about anything. They only care about their own image, their own property, and they want to enforce their own sanctioned way of making use of that property.
Brandon, it feels to me as though they just don't understand how the internet works. No. And they want to have the best of both worlds. They want to be able to put out whatever they want, whenever they want on the internet, but they want to be able to control 100% how it is used and how it is shown.
Yep. To borrow an Orwell term, I don't think they like it because they can't stuff it down the memory hole. It's not going to age well. It's out there for everyone to see for, I think Covert said cultural preservation regions. It's got to be out there for debate, and they don't like it. It's either that or they're indeed a media corporation, retirement scheme moonlighting as a religion. So which is it? Well,
the interesting thing is Mark, is their list that they actually, it wasn't everything that was on FaceLeaks that's been named in this case, right? It was just, how many videos was it?
So they have identified, was it 74, right? Yeah, 74 videos. Although, from what I understand, there are about 21 additional videos that they didn't go after. And what we believe to be the case is that those are the internal videos that they may not have copyrighted yet. Because right. Watchtower has been caught not copyrighting their own materials. So when they don't copyright their, because I think it's a somewhat expensive process. In some cases, it could be hundreds of dollars, per, and they're calling these all motion pictures, so
coming to you soon, a motion picture about pillows. Yeah.
Yes. So there's 74, and they didn't go after all the sensitive stuff. So they've gone after the 74 videos, which are basically like the convention from 2 years ago, and some other videos that they have copyrighted. And usually they copyright these things after the fact, right? So, and we noticed this, I think in the JW Apostate case, they actually, they were called out for not copyrighting their own materials. And then they said, oh, by the way, Judge, we're applying for copyrights in those. So I think the big issue that Watchtower is claiming here, and to my earlier point, they are not telling the judge, they're not suing because there's the branch organization manual, all the body of elders letters, all these other sensitive internal documents. And I don't even think those are legitimately copyright anyway. Maybe they just fall under the blanket of Watchtower, Pennsylvania. That's what they say. But they didn't go after all that sensitive stuff. They don't want that in the
They don't have deniability. Yeah. Right.
They've just gone after these videos, which they claim to have copyrighted, 74 motion pictures, and they've kind of ignored the ones that are on FaithLeaks that do not, I guess, are, number one, they're internal society videos, Watchtower Society videos, and number two, they may not have been copyrighted yet, so they can't properly make a claim. Otherwise, they'll get a counterclaim against them because they know they're. Oh, and by the way, Watchtower's hired CLL, this high-end New York law firm, and if you read my survey article from, I don't know, it's been over a year now, the one where Watchtower sues Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, they went after because Facebook was not responding to them for one of the DMCA subpoenas. So Facebook was failing to respond to Watchtower. Watchtower then went after, they hired a high-end New York law firm. They went after Facebook, and they even named Mark Zuckerberg in the suit, right? It's in my survey article. And Facebook finally responded to them, and they were claiming that it was an email mix-up where they didn't have Paul Polidoro's email address correct. Anyway, although it was very easy to find. So they've gone after they've hired this CLL law firm, Cohen, Leibowitz, and something or other, and they had also used that law firm
with dedicated funds.
Correct. And we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So they've used that law firm in the Facebook case as well. So this is not a brand new law firm to Watchtower. They've got them on retainer, and I'm sure it's quite a lot of money. So they're not playing around. So now, Truth and Transparency, they have their team of attorneys. I don't recall which law firm, but they're also, I think, talking to Electronic Frontier Foundation, possibly, that may or may not defend them. I don't know whether they will or not. But the issue here is that Watchtower is claiming that, hey, these videos, these guys are making money off of them because they are a nonprofit, but they have a donation button. So
this was going to be my question.
Right.
Usually, if Watchtower comes after you, we saw this in the Doc Spilver case. It was my reply when they sent me a cease and desist letter. The kind of go-to defense is fair use. You know, I'm not pretending it's my material. I'm literally using it in order to show how batshit crazy it is. And if you're telling me that I can't show it, even with commentary, what you're telling me is that I can't criticize your religion. And that defense has worked. Well, they haven't litigated against me, but it certainly works in my reply to them because they haven't done anything since. With Dark Spilver, it was decided that that case hinged on fair use in Dark Spilver's favor. How do you argue fair use when they're literally just dumping the videos without any kind of commentary?
That's Watchtower's argument, is that they're dumping them. Although, you know, I think, Kimmy, if you brought this up earlier, we were talking about it. The fact is that they're unaltered videos. So you can't claim that apostates are altering the videos. And in your case, Lloyd, you're not altering the video as much as you're stopping and starting sections of it and just commenting on it and showing the absurdity of it all. So, you're not faking a video. It's not like you fake. I wouldn't
want to claim this as mine. Believe me.
Right, but like what Lloyd was talking about, this may not come under fair use, right? So you have, what was it, Napster and all those that were sharing like music and before they were shut down because they were just making that stuff publicly available. It's angering that they're using this money to do that when they're trying to identify leak sources, and while they won't use that same funds to protect children, but you wonder if they are going after them because they really want them to give up their sources as well. Like, how did they get this information? Like, it's almost a bullying tactic.
Yeah. Well, that's partly what's going on in the 60 DMCA subpoenas, is they're sort of separately getting all that information. But the reality is that a lot of these sources are inside Watchtower, elders, circuit overseers, others, and they're sending it to other people who are then posting it online. So they'll never plug these leaks. I mean, we're getting leaks from Bethel and all sorts of countries all around the world. So the issue here, I think, has to do with whether or not they can prove that they're harming Watchtower in any way financially. Watchtower is going to have to prove that, and they are.
Let's see your blockbuster projections for this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they expect that like the public goes and they're directing everyone because they're becoming this digital media company, right? So they're directing people even in non-Jehovah's Witnesses to go to their website, find this video, watch it, and then there's a big donate button on their website, right? So
wouldn't it be funny if in fighting this case it forces them to basically admit that it's all about money?
Yeah. Yep. It's clearly about
would be ironic.
So, so their second argument is that it's about an injunction. So what they want to do is they want to slap as high a penalty as they can, because they did this against Peter Mosier, who was I think 15 to 20 years ago. He bought Watchtower.ca legitimately and legally. He bought it. He's from Canada. He had a website up and he started posting a lot of Watchtower's materials. And I think what got him in trouble there is that, Watchtower went after him with like $150,000 lawsuit and said, look, you either pay up or shut it down and we'll let you go quietly, and you have to give up the domain. So they forced him to give up the domain that he purchased legitimately and he owned. So he had to give it up the website. And back then he didn't have the support that he would have now. He was like one of the few websites out there, maybe him and Randy Waters were out there talking, and maybe JWN was out there too. They've been around a while, but they're just commentary. So they went after Peter and they took him down and slapped him with his suit, and they slapped him with an injunction. This is what they're trying to do against the Truth and Transparency. The injunction is a judge's order that bars a person from doing something forever or for whatever period of time. So they're trying to bar, Ethan and Ryan and the Truth and Transparency Foundation from ever posting Watchtower's materials on any website in any form.
Not just the videos, but also all of the materials.
As far as I know, yeah.
So it would actually impact on things like the branch organization manual and the correspondence manual and all that kind of thing.
I think they feel that if they get them taken down for the videos, that the rest will follow.
Okay.
So, but I can tell you, it's never going to disappear. They can go after, they're playing whack-a-mole.
It's not how the internet works.
Yeah. They're literally trying to turn the internet into something that it isn't. It's a whole new level of denialism, isn't it? And I've long argued that Watchtower simply wasn't built for the 21st century. It was built for the 20th century, when you could print anything in a nice looking book and make it all look legit. Yeah. And it was very difficult for people to question it. But that's not how things work in the information age. And they're literally trying to kind of batter the internet into a form that works for them. And it's just not going to work.
It's an extension of the information control. They're extending it out into internet censorship is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
We delete this. We want to put it down the memory hole. It's got to be deleted everywhere. That's censorship.
And we see they're doing that now, right? With the all their magazines and stuff, they're centralizing it now into one spot. So, they made changes in the Revelation book, so they're not going to be available anywhere else. So then the newcomers, and it gets changed. You don't remember that this is how it always has been. So now they're trying to centralize all their articles and stuff as well into one spot and have that master control. But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Every time that JW app, library app wakes up, it checks in with home and downloads updated stuff, so they can change stuff out. And you don't even have a printed version anymore. I mean, maybe
Mark and I have printed versions.
Yeah. No, that was one of the things originally that got me was a couple of my friends at Bethel set up a script that would automatically download the PDFs of the Watchtowers, and the one about the evolution and the quote, the misquote there.
Wait,
I pulled it up and I was like, oh, that doesn't exist online. And I was like, wait a second, I've got old Watchtowers in PDF in my Dropbox, and I went back and looked and compared it. I was like, oh, they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was proof to myself. Yeah,
and they are doing it every day
doubt.
They're constantly doing it for many publications online.
Yep.
I understand that particular magazine, I think it's quoted Dr. Rama Singh, who was furious at Watchtower. I understand that in some other languages that didn't get changed. Is that true, Arthur, right? Or maybe I'm putting you on the spot because
I don't remember exactly. I mean, Romanian did in the Romanian edition, they did remove the reference to Rama Singh.
I think in some editions they didn't, but it seems like they didn't change it in editions where they just didn't care.
Yeah. I feel like what they're doing now is an attempt to prevent us from being able to do that, draw attention to that.
But for example, in that same magazine, there was another scholar quoted, but it was proven that scholar was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And in some languages, they gave both the first and last name of that person. In the English one, they only had their first name.
I think it's a little dangerous. This is kind of a side point, but it's related to what you're saying, Arthur, is that we're seeing so many personal stories, testimonials in the Watchtower and Awake and on the JW broadcast, and they're interviewing people. I think Watchtower's I don't know what you guys think, but I think they're taking a risk that these people are not going to wake up later and that material is still out there. surely it'll be downloaded.
Well, when they're talking about a forensics team, I mean, surely that's going to have a high rate of turnover. Welcome to the forensics team, where we keep an eye on all of the arguments against our religion and all of the evidence that this is all a load of nonsense. You know,
Mark, I want to bring up to what you said. One experience in the God's Kingdom book that was released in 2014. They changed the picture with that Armenian brother who apparently is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
XJW.
That Bantayan, or what his name was.
That's the sort of stuff Stalin would do. He would doctor photographs to remove people who were no longer favorable.
So they replaced the picture of that who was a brother and one at the ECHR, and in subsequent editions of the God's Kingdom Rules book, they have a totally different picture with a group of brothers or whatever.
Which page is it? Do you know?
Let me bring that up.
I'm going to go and get mine off the shelf.
While you're bringing that up, I wish I could bring it up right now. I have to find out where I stored it. But so there is a document that I have from a South or Central American country, can't remember which, in which Watchtower did exactly the same thing. But I've got proof of it because they issued a PDF where they yanked this individual out. In fact, they boxed him, circled him, and said, "This is the guy, we're pulling out." Of either it was a magazine or a book. I don't recall which, but I've got the document, and they pulled him out because that individual was disfellowshipped. So,
wow!
If I find that in time, I'll share it with you guys.
There's someone on what I have to go back and check, but there was someone in one of it was either on Reddit or one of the support groups who is disfellowshipped, and he also was on was featured in one of their magazines and was removed. He was telling his story. I think I just read talking to him a month or two ago about it. So I think it happens more than we realize.
Yep.
And again, it's straight out of Stalin's playbook of erasing history and doctoring photographs to remove opponents and people who've been purged.
And that's right. And that's also a sign of like what Steve Hassan talks about, right? The bite model and information control. So when you actually alter your memories, and that's one way that they do that is by changing pictures, changing words, and then pretending that they never said it.
Do we have a page number, Arthur?
1 second. I try to remember how.
I love putting Arthur on the spot. I love making him sweat a bit.
I'll just say, Brandon, I like your quarantine hair.
Oh, thanks. You can't get a haircut if trying something.
Yeah, but that's kind of the style, right? The longer hair. Right. Yeah, looks good.
Yes, the page is 153.
153.
So 152 and 153. It starts on paragraph 14.
Oh, is it? Okay. So who's the guy that's no longer a JW?
Vahan Bayatian.
Oh, there he is, front center.
What's that name sound familiar?
Hang on a minute.
Yes, exactly. That's the picture. That's the picture in the original.
And that's not.
Oh, that's the Armenian brother.
Yes, that's the Armenian brother.
Okay, I remember that.
And that's no longer how it appears.
Yes, and in the English text, there is no longer brother Bayatian, but Vahan. So his first name appears. In the original, there was check. Let's Lloyd. Let's read the paragraph in your original.
It doesn't say brother here. It just says Vahan Bayatian became eligible for compulsory military service in. Actually, it does say brother. On July 7th, 2011, the court ruled in favor of brother Bayatian.
Yes, that was changed into Vayan Bayatian. Let me share the screen.
Oh, interesting.
So he got disfellowshipped, or he just left?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And in a way, if you think about it, this is bound to happen because you're bound to get, when you have such a high rate of turnover with this organization, you're bound to get people featured either in the literature or in the videos who end up leaving.
Yep.
I'm waiting for like a really high profile testimonial from the JW Broadcasting episodes where they do end up leaving. I've already met, when we were in Australia, I met a girl who was very briefly in one of the music videos, and she's now an ex-JW. I'm fascinated to know what it's going to be like when someone who was like featured front center in a testimonial, when they end up leaving, and you can interview them, you know. So
that's exactly my point. The more that they put these people front and center, not only that, but named in Watchtower articles. I mean, they've got thousands of them out there now. And I think, you know, growing up in the 70s and 80s with these magazines, you didn't have quite as many. You did have them, but often you would see a life story of somebody who had been in the organization for 70 or 80 years, and then they sort of earned their way into the magazine. Or you might see some names in the yearbook, because the yearbooks did go into different countries and say, well, this brother was the branch overseer of Costa Rica and he did this and that. So you would see that. But I think it's double now because of the vast media, you know, video archive.
They definitely have
body of work
for talent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we have to call it a day there, I'm afraid. But this has been a fascinating lockdown live stream with lots of diversity in terms of a bit of entertainment, a bit of banter, and a bit of very serious journalism. So it's been a meal of many courses, but you've all played your part, and I want to thank you all for joining the show.
Been a fun chat.
I'm looking forward to you guys doing I don't know, you might have to do 2 Watchtower and Focus.
Yes,
right?
we will do a Watchtower and Focus on as much of this as possible. So almost certainly we're going to do one on Montana in the near future, and one on the Truth Transparency Foundation. We're just what I like to do with Watchtower and Focus is just take a while to ruminate on the information. We do sometimes try and jump on a story like within a few hours, but
especially if it's hitting the media.
Exactly. Yeah. But for the most part, we like to kind of take a step back and really get our facts straight before we talk about it. So we will have a show on that in the near future. So look out for that. And look out for Mark's article on JW Survey. But that's all we have for you.
Coming soon.
I hope you have enjoyed today's lockdown live stream. The next one will be on Wednesday at a very inhospitable time for those of you in the Americas, but it will end up on YouTube regardless. I hope you have enjoyed this show. Don't forget to tune in for the next one, but above all, remember, stay safe, stay positive, and we will see you in the next coronavirus lockdown live stream. Many thanks.
Take care.
See you guys.